Welcome to Patio Ponderings, the podcast from the backyard where we explore the important and obscure in agriculture. From insights into industry trends to reflections on how agricultural roots shape our lives, we're here to spark meaningful conversations as we cover everything from the expected to the obscure. I'm your host, Jim Smith, inviting you to join me as we pull up a chair, take a moment to reflect, and dive into the stories, challenges, and innovations that connect us all to the land. Whether you're a seasoned ag professional, a friend, or simply curious about the roots that shape our lives, this is your space to pause, reflect, and dig a little deeper. So grab your coffee, sit back, and let's get pondering as we enjoy the view, the sounds, and the stories from the backyard. Welcome back to the Patio Pondering Podcast. On today's episode number 5, going to be another solo episode. I had envisioned having one or two guests to talk with us today, but with the holiday season, just could not get them scheduled. But I do have some special guests planned for the next few weeks. We're going to talk about agriculture education, banking, seed sales, and the pork industry with 4 guests that I have scheduled. Today I'm sharing something that's really deeply personal, and it's a reflection in the sharing that I haven't told anybody I'm going to share. And it is going to open me for judgment, it's going to open me for criticism. That's the way it goes. And it is the first time I'm sharing publicly a journey that only my wife knows that I'm on. Now, there are many people that suspect that I'm on this journey. There have been several sideways glances over the past 60 days when I refuse something from people. Knowing sideways glance of suspicion, as it were. But the reason that today's episode is so personal is it is 60 days without any alcohol. And I believe it's the longest I've been without alcohol since I became legal to drink back in 1992. So I wanted to share some reflections with you of what I've experienced over the last 60 days, a little bit of why I decided to do this. And I'll even have a reference to Nikki Glaser. Some of you are going, Nikki Glaser? Where'd that come from? Well, I'll talk about something that resonated with me in a podcast that I listened to when I was planting. I don't know what I expect from this episode from my listeners, but I hope what I share with you inspires you, whether you're making changes profound in your life or just trying to look for ways to reflect and grow. My decision to stop drinking came the morning after my youngest son's birthday party. And I wanted to have more clarity and control over my life. See, in my brain, alcohol wasn't something I abused. I mean, I wasn't that typical drunk that we think of when you talk about the alcoholic. But I realized that it was taking up too much space in my life and that it had become routine. And I was really comfortable with where it was in my life, but I needed to break that routine. You see, since COVID, my alcohol consumption had skyrocketed. I mean, I don't know if it was because we were bored, because we were home, but it became routine. I would come in the house, grab a few cubes of ice, pour myself a favorite bourbon, whether that was Bullet or it was Maker's Mark, or more recently it was Woodford Reserve. My day would end with a bourbon. But over the past summer, I had 2 dramatic wake-up calls that caused me to sit down and have that revelation, that thought to stop that October morning. After one of those events where I embarrassed my daughter and brand new son-in-law, I spent a lot of time with my therapist talking about how alcohol affected me, how I used alcohol, why I drank, and how people reacted to me drinking. For those of you that are close to me, you know I like bourbon. My palate has moved from light beer, IPAs, exploring stouts, and the wonderful weird world that beer gives us to the wonderful world of bourbons. My recent go-to, as I mentioned, was Woodford Reserve. My palate has developed a preference for the brown drink, and I would search for special ones. The one unicorn that I kept looking for was anything from E.H. Taylor, whether it's special reserve, single barrel, small batch. I could not find it, and that was kind of the holy grail for me. But the last 60 days have been somewhat eye-opening. For some reason, walking away from the alcohol seemed to be easy. There was a partial bottle of Maker's Mark 46 in our liquor cabinet that had been sitting there. And it sat there until I took it to Thanksgiving and let my brother-in-law and son enjoy it. And I didn't have that magnetic draw, that pull to go to the liquor cabinet, grab it. But what I've seen over the last 60 days is a little more clarity. Maybe I sleep better. I'm dreaming more, which could be a bad thing. But I don't have that good morning of regret or questioning. Inward, kind of proud that I stuck with my goal of just leave it alone. Small step, I guess. But one of the things that stuck in the back of my brain before the two big events of the summer was listening to a podcast where Joe Rogan had Nikki Glaser on as a guest. And I don't remember the day, but I think I was planning this spring. And I had gotten onto Joe Rogan's podcast because my son Toby had said, "Hey, you need to listen to Joe." And this is way before the presidential campaign and his talk with President Trump and our new vice president. So this was just exploring Joe Rogan. And I don't know why I got on a Nikki Glaser episode. I didn't know who Nikki Glaser was. It was just that crazy comedian that roasted people. That's all I knew. But she had a little 40-second clip where Joe asked her, "When was the last day you drank?" And she nailed it. She spit it right out like her favorite Bible verse. It was this day in 2011. And what she said struck me because she said, "I had just had a couple beers. It was no big deal. I was closing out the day." But then her brain went black after only a couple drinks. And she reflected on a comment or a joke that another comedian had, and she said, "This is enough," because she said her her hangovers were getting worse, and her memories were gone, and her brain had turned into self-preservation of shutting down after only a couple drinks, because in her words, she goes, "Oh boy, I know where we're going now." And that hit me because I had those days where, man, what the heck happened last night? And not in a bad way. It's not like, oh shit, I went off and did something spectacularly bad. But I didn't remember the conversations that ended the evening. I didn't remember the jokes. I didn't remember when friends left the house. But I remember things up to it. And then I wake up and see, wow, there was quite a bit of bourbon drunk. Those were the things that scared me. And what scared me wasn't what happened, but what might happen. Because in reality, in my past, there's times that I should have had a DUI, got caught, and by the grace of God, I didn't hurt myself or other people. And thinking back to that 40-second segment between Nikki Glaser and Joe Rogan was kind of the wake-up call of, man, if it happens to her, then it has to be happening to me, and it was. So the last 60 days has obviously been about alcohol, but it hasn't been about alcohol. I haven't numbed my emotions with that daily routine of bourbon. And my routine of that bourbon every night had become routine. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to enjoy this Woodford. It was, oh shoot, I'm on my fourth Woodford. And when you pour it home and you don't use a jigger, your 2-ounce pour is probably closer to 4. So what I claimed was 4 drinks was probably 8 to the normal person. And in addition to thinking back to what I had done, what I experienced, what I could not remember, helped me walk away from having that daily bourbon. And for me, sobriety isn't about the abstinence. I do not want to be that Alcoholics Anonymous, hey, I'm on step number 12 and here's my 90-day token. For whatever reason, that doesn't appeal to me, even though I looked into it. And my therapist and I talked about it, what felt like set yourself up for failure mentality that I saw so many times on the outside looking in at people that experienced Alcoholics Anonymous. So this is just me. And I am not on a teetotaler's journey, even though I am the child Methodist and the teetotaler past of my grandmother's family. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to condemn alcohol. By God, the story of beer and what we've done with beer and how it saved our life, and the story of the subtle flavors that different parts of Kentucky or the United States impart on a bourbon, the story of Scotch and the long-standing distilleries in Scotland. Those are really cool, and being able to taste the difference in those alcohols is really cool. So I'm not here to be a teetotaler saying, no, you can't do it. People can enjoy the taste of alcohol without getting carried away, without going from 1 drink to 12 drinks. I'm not one to be here to close out my liquor cabinet and not let people enjoy it around me. I have been surprised that I've been able to be at parties, at gatherings. Heck, yesterday at Christmas dinner with my family, there were 2 bottles of wine on the table. My son-in-law, my son, my brother-in-law all had some of the bourbon I had bought for them. They had some Angel's Envy, and I bought some Woodford because I know they appreciate the flavor. I'm not judging. I'm not sitting back going, oh my gosh, it's on his 4th drink. That's not me. That is not the journey I'm on. My journey is for me. It's for me to be self-reflective. It's for me to not be in those situations where I wake up the next morning and go, I don't remember from 8:30 until midnight. I don't remember why that bottle's empty. That's what I no longer want to do. So if you're in that place where you think you want to make a change in your life, I'm here. Let me know. And I'm going to continue to share my story as it evolves. And like I said, this is not a Cindy Who better than you story. This is not a story of judgment. This is not a journey to make myself better than you. I've done that in the past, and it got me nowhere. My journey is for me to make my life better. So if you need some support, let me know. So as I started this Patio Ponderings podcast, I kind of had an idea that I would hit upon my sobriety journey. But I didn't think it would be the 5th episode. I didn't think it would be my 60-day mark. So here I am sharing. Thank you for spending the time with me today. As I said, we're going to have guests here in the coming future to talk about some serious ag topics. We're going to talk about some of the subtleties and the obscure things that make my friends who they are because of their agriculture roots. So until then, thank you, and reach out with any question. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Patio Pondering. We hope you enjoyed exploring both the expected and obscure corners of agriculture with us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Connect with us anytime at jim@patiopondering.com. Until next time, keep growing, exploring, and cultivating.